Here's our simulated house church. And our makeshift camera stand.
Love your camera stand.
Oh yeah, it's fancy.
Oh.
Alright, well welcome. Good afternoon. Today we're going to do just a quick informative speech to let you know some information about Betty Green. Now first of all, have any of you heard of Betty Green before?
Yeah.
Alright, cool. Well, this will be a good learning experience for everyone then. So the overview, what we're going to talk about is the life of Betty Green, kind of who she was, some of her formative years, what made her, influenced her to become who she would be later in life, and then some of the things she did. She was in the WASP, which is Women's Air Force Service Program. Yeah, I know someone familiar with that. The CAMP, which is the Christian Airmen's Missionary Fellowship, sorry. Then that later became MAF, which is Missionary Aviation Fellowship, and then some of her accomplishments. So, in a really short picture, Betty Green was actually the... It's all good. Betty Green actually ended up helping found what basically has become modern-day missionary aviation. So she was one of the forerunners in establishing that and like pioneering even the idea of it. So we'll dig right in.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So Elizabeth Everett Green, known as Betty Green, she was born June 24th in 1920 in Seattle, Washington. Now, when she was only 8, she got to see Charles Lindbergh fly, and he's the one who flew across the Atlantic Ocean. So yeah, so she started getting that spark for I love aviation. It was really cool. Then at age 16, her dad gave her probably, she says one of the biggest gifts she's ever gotten, which was the gift of a flight. So she got to go up in the airplane and really experience it and loved it. So she discovered she had a passion for aviation. So the tricky part was, this was kind of during the time of the Great Depression. Not a good time to be pioneering in aviation, especially for a woman pilot. So it was a really, really tough road for her. So her parents actually really recommended that she study to become a nurse. So she tried it, didn't like it, wasn't very good at it, dropped out of school, didn't like it at all. It wasn't too long after that that a family friend basically gave her some advice and said, hey, how about you combine your two loves of your life, aviation and serving the Lord, and kind of put them together. So, they kind of was starting to form the idea of aviation, missionary aviation. So she, again, at this point there was nothing, there was no anything like that. So it was really interesting. So she went to University of Washington, got a degree in sociology, and then also got her pilot's license. Well, then rolls around World War II. This is when she became a WASP pilot, and basically these were women who were not officially in the military, but they were little pilots, flew military aircraft, they helped repair the aircraft, they'd ferry the aircraft from point A to B, help them get to the front lines basically, and they allowed for more male pilots to be fighting the war because of the work that they did. So they were actually a really crucial role. She in particular did some of the experimental high altitude flying, which would actually come in handy with her later in her career, as we'll get to in a little bit as well. So important was the work that they did that in 2010, Congress awarded them the Congressional Gold Medal, which is actually the highest civilian honor that Congress will bestow. So, really important people, and she was a part of that. While she was there, she started to write some articles for Christian publications, basically exploring the idea of how aviation can aid mission work, especially out in the field and things like that. And this started to garner the attention of 3 other military pilots in particular. So together they kind of started talking and they kind of developed a shared vision of missionary aviation in general. So once they got kind of that idea together, they started the camp, the Christian Aviation, Christian Airmen's Missionary Fellowship in May 20 of 1945. Now, the other 3 pilots were still in the military, so they still had their contract, but Betty, who was just the WASP, didn't have the contract, so she was actually able to start the program before the others could get out of the military. So she went to California, set up the offices, which later became kind of a joint effort with other countries that had a similar vision with the UK, New Zealand, Australia. So that's when it became the Missionary Aviation Fellowship, the MAF. So that was a crucial time for that. So basically, once she started that, she was actually the MAF's first official pilot. Everyone else was still in the military at that point who had this vision. So she actually started flying missionaries some Wycliffe missionaries into Mexico was the first official flight of MAF, which was an invention of itself. But basically, they really started to see how effective this was. A short flight of less than 2 hours could save more than a 2-week hike through the jungle, hacking and slashing, illnesses, everything else. So literally, is totally expedites the process, gets missionaries out there and back, food and supplies, all those kind of things. She also was the first map pilot to enter Peru. Like, as soon as Wycliffe got permission to enter Peru, like, officially, she was the first pilot to take them in there. So uncharted was that area for aviation at that time, that she had a Marine Corps general tell her that she shouldn't be able, basically he said she wouldn't be able to handle the crazy terrain and like the turbulence out there and everything. So, classic Betty Green, she decides to prove them wrong, like everything else she's done already up to this point even. So she goes in and flies the Wycliffe people. She's the first woman to cross the Andes Mountains flying. And so yeah, she just proved everyone wrong, and again at this point was really like the leading edge of Wycliffe in particular, the missionaries, and getting them out to new places. She literally flew in the face of difficulties, that being one of them, and just it continues. She was also the first woman to fly in Sudan, which is really interesting, and she kind of hopped all over the place. So this was, again, very uncharted. In fact, there was no precedent for a woman pilot in Sudan. The Sudanese parliament actually had to make a what they call dispensation, which is basically an exception to a rule or a law, to let her fly in the country. So they literally made exception just for her. So when she was talking on the radio, she was actually known as the golden voice of the Sudan. And she was the only woman pilot, so it's great, golden voice of Sudan. And then she's also in her career also served flying missionaries to Nigeria and Papua New Guinea as well. Now in 1962 she finally retired from the field work, but she's still she still ferried planes and worked for MAP and everything else, but she kind of retired from the field work side of things. And then in 1997 she actually passed away from Alzheimer's at the age of 77. But again, after very much establishing the legacy of MAP and everything else. All told, she flew more than 4,800 hours, and again, all over the world, as we've talked about, different continents, everything, uncharted territory. And again, some of the highlights that she's done as well, she took missionaries to previously unreached areas, so she was the front runner on that. She brought medical supplies and food to missionaries, she ferried sick and injured to hospitals, and she carried missionary children to and from schools, and then to rejoin her parents when they go on furlough. At that point it's more of a vacation or a break of some sort. And then a verse that I felt just really typified kind of her life was Isaiah 55:9. Just as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts higher than your thoughts. It's really, again, just kind of typifies the vision that she had, what she was able to accomplish, starting missionary aviation, going out to the world, helping other mission organizations get out to the world. And consequently, she's actually helped found the modern day missionary aviation. Everything from Wycliffe, we have people all over the country, all over the world, in international things as well. So she's a very influential front runner in so many things that really have led to our world, helping spread the word. Hope you've enjoyed the speech so far. The only last comment that I have, there is a book written about her. It's called Betty Green, Flying High. So it has a lot of her interesting stories and a lot of more of the details of some of her actual airplane rides and some of the harrowing experiences she had with forced landings, engine out things, landing in creek beds, crazy stuff. So if you want to learn any more, I recommend that book, and I'll get you that information after this. Thanks for listening.
Good.
What do you think, Micah? That was really